Candidate, since we're talking about presidential elections, I want to point out the Democrats have won the popular vote for president in 5 of the 6 elections in this century, but have only won the White House 3 times. That, of course, is because of the Electoral College. Ms. Fox, do you think that is still the right way for America to choose presidents, or is it time to abolish the Electoral College?
I think it's time to examine how we could go about abolishing the Electoral College, yes.
And what do you say to the people in this country that make the argument that they don't want the urban areas of this country to elect their president?
I think it has to go to the popular vote and let all people decide. That's why every vote matters, and that's why we need to pass things like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to make sure that everyone has free and fair access to the vote.
Ms. Morgenthau, is Ms. Fox right? Do you agree with her?
You know, I think being able to exercise your right to vote is the most important thing that we give here in this great country. And I think that we have seen in recent years, especially in 2016 and in 2020, how elections can get pretty messed up. And so I think we need to make sure that we are doing it in the right way and examine the Electoral College, and examine which states are the early states in voting, and I know that we have been looking at that. And ultimately, it should be the voters, the people of the country, who decide who goes to the White House.
But if I hear you right, you are open to abolishing the Electoral College. Is that correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I'm open to looking at it, Tim.
Okay.
I think that, you know, I have always said that I think we need to put all options on the table. It's how I've done things when I have been in Washington, bringing Republicans, Democrats, people from across the aisle, different views so that we can make decisions. And I think in this case, we've had some problems recently with our elections, and so we need to put it on the table and take a look at it.
All right, Mr. Siegel, stay the course or get rid of it?
These are issues I've worked on for literally 20 years now, including, among other things, as an advocate for the National Popular Vote Group, which supports an interstate compact, one particular mechanism by which we can not eliminate the Electoral College, but ensure that the popular vote is what rules the day. And I would also support eliminating the Electoral College and having a direct popular vote. And I've testified before Congress on matters of voting reform. I was a co-signer of a bipartisan lawmakers anti-political gerrymandering brief to the Supreme Court. I think we need a number of different reforms to our system, and of course one must speak to the influence of money over our political system, and Electoral College reform is one of them.
All right, Mr. Magaziner.
Everyone's vote should count the same regardless of what state they live in or whether they live in an urban, rural, or suburban community. So we should get rid of the Electoral College as one of the many steps to restoring our democracy. We need to protect voting rights, and we need to push back against this trend of Trumpism that seeks to delegitimize and undermine elections, call results fake just because the candidates that they wanted to win weren't successful. That's what's at stake in this election. I want my 10-month-old son, Max, to grow up in a democracy. And if the far right and the Trump crew take control of Congress, that is at risk. We cannot allow that to happen.